My name is Alex, and I spend way too much time thinking about the psychology of money. If you're someone who's struggling to understand money, not just the numbers, but why you keep making the same financial decisions over and over again, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. All right, let's get into it. Let me paint you a picture. It's the end of the month. You open your banking app and somehow, despite making more money than you did 2 years ago, you have less in your account than you did back then. You're not buying anything crazy. No yachts, no designer clothes, but the money just disappears. And the worst part? You can't even tell me where it went. If that just made your stomach drop a little, keep watching. Because that feeling isn't a math problem. It's a psychology problem. And today we're going to fix it. Here's the thing most personal finance content gets completely wrong. They treat money like it's a spreadsheet problem. Like if you just knew the right budget template or the right savings percentage, everything would click into place. But here's what most people don't realize. According to a study by the National Endowment for Financial Education, roughly 70% of lottery winners end up broke within a few years of their windfall. 70%! These are people who literally had millions of dollars handed to them, and they still ended up back at zero. So if money problems were just a math problem, that wouldn't be possible, right? The real issue is that your brain was never designed to handle modern money. Think about it. For most of human history, the smart move was to spend resources immediately because they might spoil, get stolen, or disappear. Saving for 30 years into a retirement account? That is profoundly unnatural to your brain. And nobody talks about this. This is where it gets really interesting. Psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, two of the most important researchers in behavioral economics, discovered something wild. Losing $100 feels twice as painful as gaining $100 feels good. They called this loss aversion, and it quietly controls almost every financial decision you make. Here's a real-world example. Let's say you have $5,000 sitting in a savings account earning 0.5% interest, which is about $25 a year. Meanwhile, inflation is running at around 3%. That means in real terms, you are losing roughly $125 in purchasing power every single year by playing it safe. But when someone suggests moving that money into an index fund, your brain screams danger, because the possibility of losing feels more threatening than the certainty of slowly losing to inflation. Loss aversion keeps millions of people in financial situations that are quietly getting worse, while they feel like they're being responsible. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Alex, but the stock market is risky. And look, I hear you. But here's the math. The S&P 500 has averaged roughly 10% annual returns over the last 50 years. If you put that same $5,000 in a low-cost index fund and left it alone for 30 years, at 10% average growth, you're looking at about $87,000. At 0.5% in a savings account, you end up with around $5,800. Same starting point, completely different destination. The only thing that changed was the psychology. Let me tell you about a guy. We'll call him Marcus. Marcus is 28. He got a promotion and his salary jumped from $55,000 to $75,000 a year. That's a $20,000 raise. Incredible, right? Except within 6 months, Marcus upgraded his apartment, leased a nicer car, started eating out more, and picked up a few subscription services. His monthly expenses went from about $3,200 to $4,600. He went from saving roughly $800 a month to saving about $650 a month. He earned more money. And he's saving less. This is lifestyle inflation. And it's not because Marcus is irresponsible, it's because of something psychologists call hedonic adaptation. The tendency for humans to quickly return to a baseline level of happiness regardless of what happens to them, positive or negative. You get the nicer apartment, feel great for about 3 weeks, and then it just becomes your apartment. The upgrade stops making you happy, but the expense never goes away. Here's the actionable move here, and this is something you can do this week. Before your next raise or income increase, Decide in advance what percentage you're going to save. Automate it. If you let the money hit your checking account first, your brain will find somewhere for it to go. But if you redirect 50% of every raise before you ever see it, you can let yourself enjoy the other 50% guilt-free. You get the lifestyle and the wealth building. That's the play. This next one is something I think about constantly, and I genuinely believe it's one of the most destructive financial forces in modern life. Social comparison. Here's the thing. Humans are wired to measure themselves against the people around them. For most of history, that meant your village of maybe 150 people. Now, you're on Instagram watching someone's highlight reel of a lifestyle that took them 15 years of debt to build, and your brain registers it as your immediate peer group. A Harris Poll survey found that 48% of Americans say money is a source of stress in their lives, and a major driver of that is the feeling of falling behind. Even when, by any objective measure, they're doing fine. The comparison trap is brutal because it has no finish line. You upgrade your car, and now you're comparing yourself to people with better cars. There is always a next level, and chasing it means you're optimizing for looking wealthy rather than being wealthy. Those two things are often the exact opposite of each other. The people who actually build real wealth, they tend to drive boring cars, live in houses slightly below what they could afford, and they genuinely don't care what you think about it. Not because they're weird, but because they did the math and realized that your approval is not a retirement plan. Here's what most people don't realize about the psychology of scarcity, and this one actually comes from some fascinating research out of Harvard and Princeton. When people are in a state of financial stress, the mental bandwidth consumed by that stress is equivalent to losing about 13 IQ points. To put that in perspective, that's similar to the cognitive impact of pulling an all-nighter. Financial stress doesn't just feel bad. It literally makes it harder to make good decisions, including financial ones. This creates a brutal cycle. You're stressed about money, which impairs your judgment, which leads to worse financial decisions, which creates more stress. Researchers Sendil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir called this the scarcity trap in their book on the subject. And the insidious part? The scarcity mindset can persist even after the financial pressure is gone. People who grew up with financial instability often continue making fear-driven financial decisions well into adulthood, hoarding cash, avoiding investments, panic selling during market dips, even when they objectively have more than enough. If you recognize yourself in any of this, I want you to hear something clearly. This is not a character flaw. This is neuroscience. And you can rewire it. But you have to do it intentionally. Look, I don't want to just hand you problems without handing you solutions. So here's a practical framework built around these psychological realities. Not despite them. First, automate everything you possibly can. Your future self has zero willpower. Stop relying on discipline and start relying on systems. Set up automatic transfers to savings and investments on payday. Make the default behavior the right behavior. Second, define your enough. This is deeply countercultural, but sit down and actually write out what your life looks like when you have enough. A specific number. A specific lifestyle. Because without a finish line, you will keep running. And the comparison trap will keep moving the goalpost. People who define enough are the ones who actually reach it. Third, create a 24-hour rule for any non-essential purchase over $100. This sounds simple. It works because almost every impulse purchase decision is driven by emotion. Specifically, the dopamine hit your brain gets from anticipating the purchase. Wait 24 hours, and the emotional charge drops significantly. You'll be surprised how many things you no longer want. Fourth, audit your financial inputs. Who are you following on social media? What content are you consuming about money? If your daily inputs are luxury lifestyle content and get-rich-quick schemes, your brain is being trained toward those patterns. Follow people who model the financial behavior you actually want. Your environment shapes your defaults. Here's the bottom line. Money is not math. It never was. It's behavior. It's emotion. It's the story you tell yourself about what you deserve, what's possible, and what security actually means. The people who win financially aren't necessarily the ones who make the most money. They're the ones who understand their own psychology well enough to stop getting in their own way. You already know the basics. Spend less than you earn. Invest the difference. Start early. You've heard it 100 times. The reason it hasn't clicked yet isn't because you're missing information. It's because information alone was never going to be enough. But now you know why your brain fights you on this stuff, and that awareness is genuinely the first step to changing it. So here's your homework. Pick one thing from today's video. Just one. Automate a savings transfer. Delete 2 social media accounts that make you feel financially inadequate. Write down your enough number. One thing. Do it today before the motivation fades. Because your future self isn't going to show up and fix this for you. That person is being built right now by the decisions you make this week. If this video helped you see money differently, please give it a thumbs up. It genuinely helps more people find this content. Subscribe if you want to keep going deeper on this stuff, because we're just getting started. I'll see you in the next one.